down! Ah! Akira is one of the most influential films in history, and is regarded as one of the greatest animated films of all time. However, having recently finished reading the manga, and I realised the film really shouldn't work. Now, the film kind of covers the first 3 volumes of the manga, and then some of the ending volume, and a story that has to tell quite a very ambitious story in just 2 hours and 4 minutes. Now, why do I think it works when it shouldn't? First off, creative control. Now, I want to compare it to another famous sci-fi adaptation of large ambition, that being 1984's Dune.
Some idea of what I could do. Don't try your powers on me.
Dune is quite famous for its disastrous production hell and eventually flopping when it came out, and so much so, David Lynch, the director of the film, has tried to rid himself of any involvement in the project. Now, the film tries to condense the novel into one film, which in recent adaptations found out it would be almost impossible, and due to this and the fact the film had half an hour omitted from the theatrical release, it made the film literally incomprehensible.
One will come, the voice from the outer world, bringing the holy war.
And had a large studio interference, thus Lynch couldn't really make Dune his. Now let's compare that to Akira. Now of course Akira has the advantage of the creator of the manga being the director. However, he only did do the film with his own creative control, and with the film being an adaptation of a story that hadn't even ended yet. And he even stated that doing the film was one of the worst ideas ever. However, despite its almost impossible nature, he did make the film. And because of this, the film has some benefits and also has some disadvantages, as it allowed him to kind of create 2 endings to a story, and thus involvement from the original creator helped the film tenfold, as it really feels like Akira. Of course, the biggest thing that helps it is the animation, which to this day feels fresh and unique, so much so the bike slide has been referenced in a lot of American animations. And because of this, the animation, it can hide the fact of the characters not really being that all well fleshed out, as the animation is so gorgeous that you kind of ignore that fact. Next is the imagery of the film. While it may not have the most well written characters, it's helped by the imagery throughout the film. It's very eye catching and memorable. From Kaneda's red jacket to the design of the espers to the ending, which while weird is very memorable. Next is Kaneda and Tetsuo's dynamic. Now, I have mentioned about the films not having great characters. However, despite that, there are 2 very memorable characters, Kaneda and Tetsuo. Now, Kaneda is a weird character and is portrayed as not very likeable. He's supposed to be a delinquent teenager, which of course makes sense as to why he's like that. And then there's probably the film's best character, Tetsuo, who's totally a great villain. His impulsivity, his love of violence, he's a well-established character. He feels mistreated and looked down upon, and once he gets power, he abuses it. And he is one of the most iconic villains in animation history, and is a great metaphor for the misuse of power and the threat of nuclear weapons. And lastly, what makes the film work is the coolness. Now this might sound like a strange point, however I think the coolness of a film, the jackets, the bikes, even the music, really helps the film. And I think has helped other films as well. Take for example The Matrix, specifically the sequels, as the first film is fantastic. However, the sequels aren't that great, however they do have good stuff in them. Of course, the highway action scene, which is of course very very cool. Another example in Japanese cinema, that being the film Ichi the Killer. The film, while I think is fine, has its main protagonist, who, even on all the posters, is the main focus due to his coolness and eye-catching nature. Overall, I believe there are things that could have and should have went against Akira being nothing but a mess. However, they were able to take a highly ambitious story and condense a series that took 8 years to complete into one film, and it turned out to be a masterpiece.